Pet's Life with Gym Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.
Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
Yeah, happy as Larry, Dave. Good to be here.
Great to have you with us, my friend. Happy Tuesday to you.
Same to you.
Welcome to you from Gym Dog for our Pets' Lives, a little feature on the 11 to 3 show. Now, John Dunn left me instructions here, Des. He said, there's two things, DMG, you must discuss, and one of them is the cat neuter programme, which is hugely important. But before we get to that, and I know there's lots of people who got to see the zoo on this summer that wasn't of 2024. You have some latest news from the zoo, Des.
Yeah, I love to give the updates from the zoo and just to highlight the great work that's done in Dublin Zoo with regards to conservation and all the rest of it. And you see, there was some bad news in the early part of the summer. In July there, they lost a couple of young elephants with a nasty herpes virus, which is prevalent. It spreads around the elephant populations all over the world. So the better news there is that the adult elephants are doing well. None of the others got very sick. They're developing antibodies to the herpes virus. And further news with regards to the herpes virus, Houston Zoo have trialled the vaccine. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, there are only 30,000 elephants left in the wild.
I had heard that.
Which is very sad.
It is.
Very, very low numbers, scarily low numbers. And some of the experts reckon that this herpes virus is so prevalent because it has bounced from one species to the other, you see, that it does pose an actual existential threat to the poor elephant. So what they're probably going to have to do is, if the vaccine works, they're going to have to vaccinate the captive elephant populations and selectively vaccinate wild ones.
Wow. Because I remember, Des, we went to Namibia and we actually got to see the elephants in their natural habitat. And there's nothing more special than seeing a group of elephants around the waterhole doing their thing with the little Nellies and everything.
Yeah, they're majestic.
And they're beautiful. And they're here longer than we are.
This is the whole thing about it. They're here longer than us. They have a right, the same right to the world as you and I.
Have you been impressed by the plains of Africa in the zoo? You have to say.
Yeah, I have. I'd love to see even more land and space of the Phoenix Park given over to the zoo to help them further improve their habitats, you know, because I've had a couple of different winter visits to the zoo and you know how the Irish climate is. Now, the hippo and the elephant enclosures and the African plains, they can get a bit muddy in this country, November, December, January, February, and I think a little bit of extra acreage, if they could carve their way into a bit more of the park, it would be welcome. So everyone would love to see them have more space.
I used to love seeing the polar bear in the zoo. But the diversity of animals, I mean, I think Dublin Zoo is one of the best zoos in the world.
It is, and the effort and the work that goes into it in close conjunction with UCD. And as I say, not just the elephants or the herbivores. Do you know about the orangutan?
Tell me more.
Yeah. So, again, great work there. A young orangutan female called Mujur had a baby. And now, again, this is the flip side to a small population. There probably weren't enough older, we say, mothers and grandmothers there to give this young mother the guidance she needed. And she struggled to breastfeed her own little baby.
Wow.
Yeah. So what they did was they put an appeal out to the ladies of the world, of the Dublin area, who are young mothers and young mums, to know would they come in private and breastfeed in front of the orangutan.
And what happened?
So, about 30 young mums turned up and breastfed in private in front of the orangutan mum to give her the idea, to help her along. And she got the hang of it.
Brilliant.
And she began to feed her baby. She began to feed the baby. And subsequently then, when the baby orangutan was a little bit bigger, they separated the baby from its mother and they sent it over to a special orangutan unit in the UK to further develop. Another place I'd love to visit, actually, Monkey World in the UK. Would you believe there's a zoo in the UK called Monkey World?
And there's a TV show, I think, based on it.
Based on it. Another place I'd love to visit. But anyway, yeah, that's the great work they've been doing in the zoo with the orangutan and the elephants. Wow. Good news about the elephants anyway. The older ones there, they're getting their antibodies. None of the others got as sick with the herpes virus as the younger pair did. And they're doing okay. They're getting over the virus, thankfully. And as I say, hopefully the vaccine trial will be successful. Fingers crossed.
We are looking and inviting you to get in touch with us here on Kildare KFM for our little feature, A Pet's Life. If you have any questions that you would like us to put to Des, all you have to do is send your WhatsApp text or your voice note to KFM on 0833 97 97. Now, before we get to hear about the cat neuter programme, one in very quickly from Tig, Des.
Yeah.
It says, good morning, all. A quick question about my wire-haired dachshund.
Excellent, yeah.
1.5 years old, full size, not miniature. And I take him for a 15 to 20 kilometre walk at the weekends. Sometimes, twice I think that I'm harming his joints, as I've read online that they can suffer with joint and disc problems.
They can, so Daxies suffer with their backs. Does this listener say what length or distance of walks?
It just says 15, 20 kilometre walks.
Oh, that'd be too far. Yeah. No, I misheard. I thought you said 20 minutes.
Yeah,
no, 15 to 20k would be too long. Absolutely.
What would you recommend?
The rule of thumb, the best rule of thumb for a smaller breed like that would be little and often. So I would say up to 4 to 5k would be a long enough walk for a little dog like that. Now, again, remembering our dogs, they're not endurance species, they're not working dogs anymore. They don't have that level of conditioning and hardiness that the old-fashioned working dog on the farm used to have. So little and often is a better rule of thumb for them in terms of walks. And remembering also, a walk by itself, for their strength and their fitness and their muscle tone and having their joints and limbs in perfect working order, they need a run as well. So do try and find somewhere safe and secure to let your dog off the leash for a run. They need a run. A walk by itself isn't enough. But certainly not to be bringing a little dog like that on lengthy 2-hour, 3-hour hikes. Because a 15k walk, right, it's going to be, the best part of a 2-hour hike?
Yeah, it's about 10 marathons.
It's about, for the dog. No, far too long for the dog. I would say 30 minutes a couple of times a day, and find somewhere where you can let him off to throw a ball, have him play, have him run, would be far better enrichment and socialisation for him than off on the big lengthy hikes.
So there you go, Tig. Less is more in this case.
That's it.
Arlene Nolan was on to us yesterday, Des, when I said that you were coming on. Arlene lives over there in Kilcock, and before we get into talk about the cats, there is one type of cats that Arlene brought up. And it's a question she simply asked. She said, could you ask Des tomorrow, Dave? This was yesterday now.
Yeah.
Are Manx cats indigenous to the Isle of Man only? I saw one, or maybe it was a cat who was involved in an accident.
Yeah, it could have been a cat that was involved in an accident. We've no Manx cats. In almost none in Ireland, unless a few are imported just as pets. Personally, in my career in Ireland here in 25 years in Kildare, I've never seen a Manx cat in Kildare. So there you go. So the story with Manx cats is that at some time, several generations back, there was a cat born with no tail. And then thereafter, the mutation that this cat had, spread amongst the cat populations on the Isle of Man, and then they began to selectively breed it. So now the tailless cat is specifically an Isle of Man phenomenon.
It's and culture.
We'll never see it. It's over there. So no, I've never seen one. Now, having said that, unfortunately, there's a good few cats with acquired tailless syndrome, right? Unfortunately. And that can have, there are two reasons for that, believe it or not. When cats fight, they bite each other on the tail.
That's what they go for?
Yes, they do. And they bite each other deep with their teeth, and they have nasty bacteria in their teeth. And I've often had to amputate part of, or even all of, a cat's tail in response to a severe infection in the tailbone. From cat fights. So that's one possible cause. Another unfortunate cause, and it's how I've seen it more than once in my career too, is cats getting caught in engines and getting caught up in fan belts and the likes and losing their tails. Yeah, surprisingly common. But needless to say, they can live well without a tail. Yes.
And that's the thing.
They can indeed.
Right. Yeah. Arlene, there you go. Probably an accident happened to poor cat, and hopefully the cat's all right. That leads us nicely, I suppose, in Des, to the very important issue of cat neutering and the programme. Yeah, so the wild cat and semi-wild or semi-feral cat populations around the Kildare area have been growing in recent years. Probably not as many cats been brought in for neutering, to do with people being locked up during COVID and all kinds of things like that. And also due to funding issues, I suspect, with the charities who have to focus on dogs, and they haven't had the time or the funds to focus on on cats in recent years. So the cat neutering, which used to be
something that was left to the local charities, the cat neutering end of things. They probably haven't had the resources to carry out the same neutering programs as as would have been done in previous times. So cat numbers have increased. So our practice, Kildare Vet Surgery, has a 25-year anniversary, 2024 this year. So in the spring, we ran a promotion highlighting, celebrating the 25-year anniversary around dogs. But now for the rest of the year, we want to focus on cats, because that's where the need is. So Kildare Vet Surgery are doing cat neutering and cat spays. That's the female neuter. We're doing male and female neuters for €50 for half price for the rest of this calendar year.
That's the anniversary gift.
Anniversary gift, half price cat neutering for the rest of the year.
Fabulous.
So to try and encourage people to remember to do it, bring their cats in, avail of the offer, and therefore help to overall hopefully reduce the cat population.
Can I ask you a question now, Des? In all the years that you've been working, do you find that people will have cats and dogs, or do people just have A or B?
And it's split into three groups. You have cat people and dog people, and then you have people who are general animal lovers and have a bit of both, you know. My sister, for instance, has a busy house, 5 kids, 2 dogs and 3 cats. And I have lots of clients like that who have cats and dogs together. And then you have people who, for lifestyle reasons, maybe they live in a smaller house or an apartment and they might just choose to have a cat. And you have others who just choose to have a dog. And sometimes if you get a dog first, it can be harder to get a cat because the dog mightn't accept a cat.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are various reasons, some of them accidental, as to why people have one or the other.
Christina, good morning to Christina in Maynooth. And Des, her question is regarding her cat. The cat keeps overlicking skin areas, causing large hives. And raw red. What do you recommend? These are 2 reasons. It's a dermatitis and there's an irritation in the skin. Okay, if it's a primary dermatitis, he's licking because his skin is inflamed. Unfortunately, it's impossible to tell, though, whether this licking is caused by a primary dermatitis or if the licking is a stress response causing the dermatitis. Okay? So you do need to actually bear in mind, believe it or not, this could be a stress response, a stress behaviour of some sort. So an acquired habit, a bit like the human child biting their fingernails because of stress or worry, a bit like the lions and tigers in captivity pacing up and down because of stress, a little bit like the way dogs that have separation anxiety, they can dig, they can chew, they can eat destructively because of stress. Right? Cats can focus on one part of their body and they can lick and lick and lick, and it can be a stress response. So that's the background information to what's going on. And the bottom line is, armed with that knowledge, listener, your cat needs to see the vet and identify what's the reason for the licking, because it's one or the other. So there you go, Christina. I think you have to make an appointment with the lovely vet. 2 doggy questions in for you, Des. Here's one that says, please settle an argument. This comes in from Denise Long in Newbridge. Right. And she says, please settle an argument between my brother and myself. Scraps from the dinner for the dog, yes or no? I'd say no. The reason why is because pet foods are very well balanced and very nutritious and very rich nowadays. So if your dog is on a premium pet food, he doesn't need and shouldn't get anything on top of it. Okay, another one here on the doggy side. Kathy Fitzpatrick says, 2 rescue dogs whom 90% of the time get on well, but at times they tear strips off each other. Any thoughts, Des, on that? Yeah, that's competitive. There's competitive tension there between them. It probably happens in the presence of the owners. And it's a little bit of a jealousy or an insecurity thing. Now, all you can do is reassure them separately and just try and ensure that they both feel secure and they both get equal attention and keep them both busy. Wow. Again, yeah. Now, if one or other of them is not neutered, then you should neuter. Okay, so generally speaking, removing the hormonal drives will calm down any temperament issues, nearly always. So if there's one of that pair that are not neutered, then you should get him neutered. Okay, but otherwise bear in mind you have competitive tension and you have to try and reduce that by giving them lots of walks
lots of equal attention.
Just sharing this with you, Des, has just come in. I see Shen and Magic, 2 gay male penguins in a Sydney aquarium. Amazingly, they raised 2 chicks from eggs given to them. Shen died last week. Amazing story, but true. Yeah,
that's nice. It just goes to show that in every species you can have diversity.
It is, yeah.
And you can have the ability to adapt, and they make the best of the circumstances they find themselves in, and they fulfil their natural instincts whatever way they can. And sure, their diversity is what makes the world go round.
I was just going to say, there was, for a number of years, penguins were adored by everyone.
Yeah, everybody loves penguins. There are a few great movies made about penguins.
March of the Penguins, wasn't it?
March of the Penguins, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
I read a book about penguins which had a kind of a life changing effect on me maybe 20 years ago. It's about change management, right? It's about how you cope with change in your life. And it was kind of and it's an allegory about penguins in the North Pole, and it's called My Iceberg is Melting. Yeah, there you go. And it's a lovely little story. A lovely little allegory, like a kind of a biblical tale. And one little penguin, you see, goes off exploring and realises that the iceberg is melting, and comes back and tries to communicate the message to the other penguins. And they go through the different phases of resistance to change. First of all, they don't believe him. Right. Secondly, they become defiant and they say, no, we'll be grand, we'll last it out, it'll be fine. Eventually they began to think to themselves, what are we going to do? Right. Then they began to think, well, there's nothing we can do. There's just despair, and eventually there's an action plan put in place. So it's about the 7 or 8 stages.
That's brilliant.
The 7 or 8 stages of change management. You see, whether you're a team or a business or a school or a group of people, whatever it is, how do you cope with change, and how do you put a plan in place, and how do you turn a negative situation into a positive? And it's called My Iceberg is Melting.
That is going to be bought by many people after hearing that story.
It's a great story. And anyway, to cut a long story short, the penguins move. They swim to a different iceberg.
Happy ever after.
Happy ever after.
2 left. Morning. Just a quick question about how many times a day should you feed your dogs? This is Des from Salons. It's a small dog we have.
Yeah, hello Des from Salons. 2 meals a day, equally spaced out, 12-hour intervals. 2 little meals a day. So what you do is you have a look at the bag and you see what weight and what age your dog is, and you feed what the guideline weight for your dog's age is, and it'll give you a per day amount in grams, and you weigh that out, measure that out, and then you split that and you have an idea in your head of what that is, morning and evening.
Final question, Des, and this is one which it's sent in by Paula Norton from Selbridge, and she says, Des, would you please recommend a breed of dog for a young family made up of a 5-year-old mad for any sort of dog youngster and 2 older siblings aged 15 and 17?
Yeah, a nice crossbreed, like a cockapoo, which is a crossbreed between a Cocker Spaniel and a poodle, or a Cocker Spaniel crossed with a Springer Spaniel, or a Springer Spaniel crossed with a Collie. I would recommend a nice medium-sized crossbreed.
That is brilliant. I think we're out of time, Des.
Great. Not too bad.
What a different amount of information we've learned.
Well, yes, this is the diversity of the animal kingdom, you see. It's a little bit like, do you know what? There's a remake of All Creatures Great and Small. Now, they were the old books, you see, that in a way kind of inspired me to be a vet. They were on TV when I was a child in the late 70s, early 80s, you know, about the vets in Yorkshire. And, well, there's a remake of it. Now, it's not modernised, but they just remade it. It's still set in the 1940s in the village in Yorkshire, you see, right? And the figure of fun, the comic hero in the story, is Tristan, the younger brother. And you see, he has too much crack, you see, and too many girlfriends, and he keeps failing his exams in college. It's taken him about 7 or 8 or 9 years to become a vet, but meanwhile he's practicing and working in the brother's practice, you see, all the time. So he's actually learning to be a vet, even though he can't pass his exams. Anyway, the older brother has the flu and goes to bed, and Tristan is left with a waiting room full of people waiting to see the vet, you see, in the hallway of the house. And he arrives in to puts the white coat on and has a look, and he panics because there's a parrot on an old man's shoulder, there's a kitten in a box, there's a Jack Russell on an old man's knees, there's an Irish wolfhound, and then there's a goat on a string with a child. and they're all waiting to see the vet. And one by one he sees them, and every time you see after the consultation, he has to duck out into the storeroom and flick through the veterinary manual to figure out what to do next.
The ABC.
He has to read the parrot chapter, and he has to read the goat chapter and all the rest of it, yeah. So that's Tristan the vet. That's the diversity of veterinary. And not that my practice is as diverse as that nowadays, no. In recent years what's tend to happen is you have horse vets, and you have farm animal vets, and you have pet vets. But even within, we say, the pet vet sector, there would be that diversity there, whereby we have dogs, cats, and the occasional other species like a bird or a rabbits are becoming more popular, actually.
Des Groom from Jim Dog, thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
for
Dave.
Pets Live. All creatures great and small, you the man. Talk to you next week.